Real quick before we jump into the video, guys, for the rest of this year I'm going to be on a fundraising campaign to raise a minimum of £1,000 for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. For more information on the charity and what it does, and for the donation links, please look in the description below. And thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy the show. What's going on, guys? Rybo Teacher in the house, and we're back with another opinions video. Last week, if you remember on my channel, I talked about things that I hate and things that I loved about Pokemon. Well, this weekend we're going to talk a lot more about my initial thoughts and my kind of hopes and some bit speculation about Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then tomorrow will be Legends Arceus. I want to give you guys my honest opinions, and I want to give you guys my thoughts. We talked about this briefly on my stream a little while back, but I wanted to take some time to digest as much information as we could before we actually release this video. I did actually record a version of this before, but I didn't like what I finished with, so we're gonna carry on with that today, and we're gonna make it nice and good. So, initial impressions, as for those who have seen my reaction, which is actually up on the channel, I'll leave a link to that in the description if you didn't see it. But my first thought when I saw this game was that it was kind of a Let's Go style game, which was really a little bit off-putting at first, and part of the reason for that was due to the art style. Of course, the elephant in the room, what everybody's been talking about, is the very chibi-esque art style. Now, look, not everyone's a chibi art style fan, that's perfectly fine, okay? Now, you're entitled to your opinion of what kind of art you like and what kind of art you don't. And of course, this kind of makes it very interesting, right? Because we were all surprised with what we actually got compared to our own expectations. And I think that was half of the problem that we had, is we had an inherent expectation that these games were going to be done in a very Sword and Shield-esque style, or maybe Let's Go style, one of the two. And we ended up getting neither, right? We didn't get either of those at all. We got a very, very different style. And look, I'm not entirely sold on it, I will be perfectly honest. I don't think the art style is entirely my cup of tea. That being said, though, I'm generally a much fairer judge of that when we actually get to play these games. I think it's not fair to judge a game by its trailer, particularly when historically with any video game trailer, let's be real here, you are always going to see these trailers on, like, very early versions of the product, so they won't be finished. So there's probably going to be missing textures, missing shading, maybe some outlines missing, which definitely felt like was the case from the trailer, particularly in the overworld. There was a lot of the buildings were missing shading, and some textures felt a little bit wonky. And then alongside that, you know, the character models, particularly of Dawn and Barry, which were the two that we saw the most, they felt like they were missing outlines during the battle scenes. Like, you could easily just do like a 1 or 2 pixel thick black outline around the character model, and it will look infinitely better. In fact, someone actually tweeted that on Twitter relatively recently. Hey, I'll see if I can find that tweet, but I'm not entirely sure I can. But if I can, I'll have that linked below as well. And obviously, it was interesting to kind of see the debate going on Twitter. I didn't like how hostile that debate got, I'll be honest. It was kind of ridiculous seeing people sending death threats to people that actually liked the art style. I'm like, what? What's the point of that? I talked about things that I hate about that, and the toxic fandom is one of those things back in my video last week. So, definitely frustrating for me. It wasn't what we expected, but I don't hate it. I'm gonna reserve full judgment on it until we actually play the game. Of course, I'm gonna be playing the game whether I was taken aback or not, right? I'm gonna experience it, so that's something to be said. And part of the reason why the art style was so different is the developer of the game is not Game Freak. It is, in fact, ILCA. So, ILCA's a very, very interesting studio. So, for those that don't know who ILCA is, ILCA, I Love Computer Art, is what it stands for. It's a Japanese JRPG studio that was formed in 2010. They've been involved in a lot of pretty big, successful JRPG titles like Yakuza 0, Nier Automata, and Dragon Quest XI. They were all designed by ILCA. So these guys have got a pretty good history behind them already in a very short space of time. It feels weird to me to see ILCA doing this and not Legends Arceus, and Game Freak is doing Legends Arceus, but that kind of represents like a break from the norm. Like, one of the criticisms I've had from basically Nintendo at this point and Game Freak, etc., is the Pokemon games feel too safe, right? They're not really taking any risks. Well, now we've suddenly got one of the bigger JRPG studios doing a remake of an old game. It feels very odd to me that this was the choice. It must have had quite a lot of business intention behind that. It is worth pointing out Junichi Masuda is listed as a director for this project, so there is still a lot of influence from the traditional folks. Obviously, Masuda was actually the director of the original Diamond and Pearl as well, so it's not too surprising to see that he's still listed as a director. But I'm not sure I like the fact that Ilka's doing this game. I feel like I would have preferred to have seen Ilka do Legends Arceus, but nonetheless, it's an interesting departure from the typical norms of what we've expected. And who knows, maybe we might get some nuances in this game that are the touch of Ilka that may have been, like, not the laziness of Game Freak's development for so long. I hate using that term, but it feels kind of that way, right? So, as much as I love Ilka's games, I've played Nier Automata, I actually really enjoy that game. I'm not sure I entirely like the fact that Ilka's doing this game personally. Next up is a term that I've seen around a lot with regards to Brilliant Diamond and Pearl, the term faithful remake. Now, this term bothers me a little bit because for those who don't know what the gaming sense for a faithful remake is it's taking an old game that has been around for a very long period of time and essentially modernizing it with up-to-date graphics or music or various other things like that, but not actually adding any new content to the game. That is what a faithful remake is, and if that's what this is, there's a lot of questions that will need to be answered with regards to that. Would that mean that we're not getting a Platinum Arc? Because Diamond and Pearl did not have a Platinum Arc. There was no Distortion World, there was no Giratina, there was none of that back then, so there was also Stuffle Fire types. Are we getting that situation again? I think that's one of the most hated things about Gen 4, is you were either forced to take the Fire starter or take a Rapidash for a Fire type on your team. Even Flint, who was the Fire type Elite 4 member, literally had a Rhydon and a Steelix. Like, it kind of felt pretty stupid, but that's kind of just how it is. I kind of think this might have been lost in translation. The only people that I've seen speaking about the term faithful remake have been from Japanese names, so this could well be a mistake lost in translation, and it could well just be that the game is going to honor a lot of the original features of Diamond and Pearl while adding in the necessary new steps, like the Platinum Arc, much like the Delta episode was kind of the Emerald Arc for Oras, if you like. So I would imagine it's probably more likely going to be that. Next up, let's talk about another elephant in the room, Mega Evolution. So, I've talked about this in a previous video before where I called out A-Drive and Sacred Almighty for kind of clickbaiting their audience. I got a barrage of abuse from Twitter from A-Drive's fans because of that. Says a great deal about A-Drive's fans, but that's just how it is. But at this point, we don't know if Mega Evolution is absolutely confirmed for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Obviously, Paul Ryan, the Poker Shopper owner, put out this tweet about a merch campaign featuring Lucario or Mega Lucario Megazord X, which I talked about in a previous video doesn't make sense to be Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. My kind of thought process since then is it's probably something to do with Unite. We had the closed beta of that recently. I'm not going to cover the leaks or anything. People have been leaking stuff from that, which is actually violating the terms of the closed beta, so I hope those people get banned, but that's my opinion on that. But as far as Mega Evolution goes, if we get it, it'll be interesting, and it will immediately disprove the whole faithful remake that we had in the previous point, but it'll be very interesting to see how they get its balance. And I'm not a huge fan of bringing Mega Evolution back, if I'm being honest, although, that being said, it would make sense for the Pokemon that got moveset buffs in Sword and Shield, when a lot of those Pokemon are capable of Mega Evolution. So, it's an interesting thought. If we do get it, then I'll be interested to see how that works. We do know abilities and stuff like that exist in this game, so it's not going to be super watered down. And it will be interesting from a competitive standpoint, given the fact that we'll either be on Sword and Shield meta, or potentially we'll be playing this game's competitive meta, whatever that might be. So, be pretty interesting to see what happens. The next thing I want to talk about is Pokemon events. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, the Arceus event at Spearpillar only was released in Japan, so I would like to see that brought in. I would like to see like a Cresselia and a Darkrai event and stuff like that. I'd like to see things like Shaman come available and stuff. There's a lot of things that I would love to see in the Pokemon games. Particularly events-wise, we had a lot of these Pokemon that have not been officially released to the rest of the world, so I would hope that that gets added into these games, so it kind of completes the circle. Because alongside that as well, it is highly possible that with all the Pokemon events and everything going on, that we can essentially kind of, if you like, complete the National Dex for Sword and Shield. Because obviously a lot of the Pokemon that are currently missing from the Sword and Shield Dex are like Gen 4 Mythicals. So it's not a surprise to see that, but yeah, it would be very interesting to bring those in. How would they be incorporated? Would they just be the same sort of deal, or are they just going to be like a mystery gift release? I hope that's not the case, but we'll have to see. But I really hope to see, particularly Arceus, Darkrai, Cresselia. I think those would be interesting. I mean, Cresselia is possible to get through Dynamax Adventures, but Darkrai and Arceus, I don't believe are, so that's an interesting thought. The next up is to talk about is, we mentioned it before, the Platinum Arc. Obviously, there was a rumor going around on Reddit, which was kind of conveniently described as a wild rumor, that we were getting some kind of polished Platinum DLC in the early stages of 2022. I don't believe that, personally. I did actually, again, I did a video on that, but I never released it, because the more I read that article, the less I believed it, so I hope that we're getting some Platinum story and it's not just shoved in at the post-game, because as much as I love ORAS, and I've talked about this before, ORAS is one of my favorite games of all time. One of the things that I really hated is that there wasn't that much like Emerald in the storyline until the Delta episode in the post-game. So I would love to see Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl have a similar charm of the original Diamond and Pearl, but have the Giratina story, the Distortion World, and things like that, much like it was in Platinum, kind of somewhat ingrained into the main story. I would like to see that kind of small bit of polish added to the game, because we have access to that, right? It's not like we can't. There's also things to talk about, things like the fairy typing, and stuff like that. So, when it comes to Platinum Arc, I just want a good storyline. You know, the rumor that went around on Reddit was talking about Looker missions, which was the same thing we had in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So that was okay, but at the same time, like, just give us something Platinum related, not just leave it as the Faithful Remake, because if it is a Faithful Remake, these games are probably going to flop and not be very good. And the last thing I want to talk about is, again, a bit of speculation here. But if we are to go on the Faithful Remake term, we might get a good return of the Battle Frontier. It's been a hot minute. Although we did kind of have the Battle Tree, which is very similar to the Battle Frontier in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and stuff like that. Yeah, we did technically have that, but we haven't had a good old-fashioned Battle Frontier in a very, very long time. And it'd be kind of nice to have it back. I've missed it. I really enjoyed the Battle Frontier here, particularly in the older days. I like the whole style of it, so it would be nice to have that back. Obviously, the Battle Frontier was in the original map, and we saw in the trailer there was a lot of content that was in the original games, like the Underground. We never saw the Battle Frontier, though. So, that's a bit of a worry of mine, but I really hope we get it. It would be a nice thing to add back into the game. It'd be even more interesting if Mega Evolution was a thing, as how would that incorporate into the Battle Frontier? That would be kind of fascinating to see what they do with that. But yeah, honest thoughts on the game, final thoughts. I'm intrigued by the game. I wouldn't say I'm super excited for it. Certainly not compared to some of the other games that I've been excited for. I feel like I'm more excited for Unite right now, but that's probably because it's coming sooner. So, but yeah, in general, yeah, okay. I'm all for these games, alright? I'm not gonna hate on the games before I've played them. It's not fair to do so. But I'm going in with, like, cautious optimism. I think that's the fairest way to describe it. But yeah, those are my honest thoughts on Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Let me know, what do you think? What are you hoping for? What are we getting? What are we not going to get? Definitely let me know down below. Or let me know on my Twitch streams. I stream every weekday from 8 PM UK time. So definitely feel free to come hang out over there. Links to all of that and my socials are in the description. below, as always. But either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Rybombee Teacher. Stay safe, stay awesome. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.